If you've been trying to vibe code your own apps using AI, but you keep getting buggy, unusable code, or you get stuck in these loops of fix this, fix this, fix this, or even get frustrated and give up because you're just hitting so many issues, this video is for you. Because look, it's not your fault. Without the right strategies, vibe coding doesn't work. You're just gonna get stuck with this mess of code. Maybe you're gonna get a basic MVP working, but as the app gets bigger and more complicated, things are gonna start breaking and you're gonna get frustrated. I've been using vibe coding tools to create software for myself and my clients for well over a year now. And in that time, I have found the strategies that make the difference between getting reliable, functioning code quickly versus getting stuck in those awful debugging loops. So here are the strategies I wish somebody had told me about how to vibe code effectively so you can build your dream software as quickly and pain-free as possible. Now, first up, and this is the most important tip, if you just follow this tip, it's going to do 80% of the work for you, and that is to use the right tool. Because there are tons of tools out there that promise to make vibe coding easy, and most of them are browser-based. They say that you can just go to this website and type in some description for your app, and you're just going to get this beautiful functioning tool right away. And you can often get a decent MVP out of these tools, and I'm not saying don't use them at all, but they are limited compared to the more powerful tools you have at your disposal because they're kind of sandboxed. Their capabilities are naturally limited because they live in these shiny web-based user interfaces. So to get the best results vibe coding, you should jump to the slightly more intimidating but much more competent tools that live on your computer, like Cursor, Claude Code, or the OpenAI Codex command line interface. Yes, they're going to take you a few more minutes to get comfortable with, but you're going to get much better results out of them. Now, the second tip is to not do too much at once. You likely have some big dreams and big plans for what you want to build, but if you dump that entire dream into a prompt, you're going to get a mess. It's going to miss things. It's going to create breaking code. You're going to be spending hours debugging, and you might have to end up deleting all of it and start from scratch. So one of the best things you can do is create a list of ideas for what you want to build in your app and then just tackle them one at a time. I'm going to show you this in Cursor. And this is the simple site blocking Chrome extension that I made in an earlier video if you want to watch that. Instead of opening up the chat and saying, I want you to add user accounts and lists of websites to block, and I want you to change the UI, and I want you to do all these other things. Instead, I'm just going to create a separate document here called plan.md, and MD is for a markdown file. And here, I'm going to list out all the features that I want to have in this app eventually. So I'm going to say user logins for sharing across devices, lists of sites in different categories to block. Nuclear option where you can't turn off the timer. And I could keep listing out those ideas. And then instead of dumping all of this into the chat and saying, build this, take it one by one. And more importantly, try to think about which of your features depend on other features and build those ones that are dependent on earlier in the process. Third, work with the AI to create a detailed plan before you start coding. So let's say that I wanted to add just one of these features, maybe listing out sites in different categories to block. Instead of copying that and pasting it into the chat here, I can take that and I can ask. I can say, I want to build this feature and paste it in. And then I'll say, help me come up with a plan for implementing it without any breaking issues. And you don't have to do this in Cursor. You could do this in ChatGPT or in Claude or basically in any app of your choice. But by taking a feature, asking it to come up with a plan, and then asking it to follow the plan, you're going to get much better results. And some of these programming agents, like Claude Code in particular, actually have a planning mode where you can ask it to come up with a plan and then tell it to just follow the plan right there. And that's going to get you much better results than if you just start by saying, build this. So now that this plan has been completed, I can copy it. I can make a new header that says, plan for lists of sites in different categories. I can paste it in, and now I can just open a new chat and I can say, help me implement this feature. And then I can highlight all of it and paste it into the chat. for it to start building. Tip number 4 is to create a guide document for your agents to follow whenever they start working on your code. Now, this is a markdown file that you can create within your project. And it's usually going to be called agents.md unless you're working with Claude Code, in which case it's called claude.md. And in this file, you list out all of the important things for the agent to know about your project before it starts working. And whenever you spin up a new agent in Cursor or in Codex CLI or in Claude Code to work on part of your project, it will read this document first to give it other important context. The best thing is that you don't even have to write this yourself. We can create the document, and then I can say, help me flush out this agents.md document with everything a coding agent should be aware of before working on this project. And then Cursor will scan through all of the code in your project, figure out what are some important factors to keep in mind, like style that the code should follow, like libraries it should use, what the goal of this project is, everything that is important as context to give to the agent before it starts working so that you reduce your messes going forward. This is really great if you have certain style guides you want it to follow, or if you know that errors have happened in the past from trying to do things a certain way, you can put those errors in here and say, hey, as a heads up, be sure to avoid this problem, and then you won't run into those problems again in the future. And you can see it has flushed out a basic version of this file. And another really good bonus tip here is before you commit any of your work to GitHub or before you publish anything or whenever you build a new feature, be sure to prompt Cursor or whatever coding agent you're using to update your agents.md with whatever new changes have been made so that future agents you spin up to work on your project have that context provided to them. Tip number 5 is a bit of an advanced tactic, especially if you're coming into coding through vibe coding. And this is adding tests to your code that can be run whenever any change or new feature is added to make sure that everything still works. Now, obviously, you could write all of these tests yourself if that is something that you want to do or want to learn how to do, but your vibe coding tool of choice can also add these tests for you. All you would need to do is open up the chat with it and say, this app is working great right now. Create a comprehensive test suite for all the current features that passes so we can make sure we don't break anything in the future. And this is another little bonus tip. Typos don't really matter when you're dealing with these agents. They're smart enough to figure out what you meant. And now Cursor is going to go through the app, figure out everything that the app does right now, and create a testing suite to make sure that when we add new features or when we change things, we don't break what's already working. If you want to get more advanced with this, you can also push this testing suite up to GitHub so that GitHub runs it on your code before you merge any changes to make sure that you're not pushing anything breaking to your live product. And this is another really good habit to get in whenever you make some update to your app. Just tell Cursor or tell whatever agent you're using to update your testing suite with the new features and changes and to run all the existing tests to make sure that nothing has been broken. And you can see Cursor went ahead and created that full test suite for it, ran it to make sure that everything passes. And now if we ever want to run it again, all we have to do is say, run the test for this app to make sure nothing has been broken. And Cursor or whatever vibe coding tool you're using can quickly run the tests and verify that your app should still work. I will say this doesn't replace needing to test your app on a browser. You still need to do that as well, but this will catch many errors that might be introduced by other vibe coding that you are doing on a project. Now, in addition to testing, there is another way to use AI to make sure that the code that you're writing is solid before you go deal with a ton of things breaking. And that's tip 6, which is to use AI to review code that AI wrote. So all of the code that I've been doing today has been in Cursor. And Cursor is typically using the Claude Sonnet 4.5 model. I've navigated to this directory in my terminal for this project, and I'm going to open GPT Codex. I'm going to allow Codex to run. And what I'm going to ask it to do is review the test suite that Cursor just created. So say, I've created a test suite for this app. Please make sure it's comprehensive and come up with a list of any suggestions you might have for improvements. And this is a great thing to do whenever you build a feature in your app, whenever you make a big change. Before you spend a bunch of time testing it out yourself, just ask another AI to review the work and make sure it's solid. This is kind of like having multiple engineers work for you, because normally, if you're working at Facebook, you wouldn't just push up Facebook code without another engineer reviewing it. You would have other people look at it and make sure it's solid. You can do the same thing with these AI agents. And so what I love to do is have Codex write one version of something and then have Claude review it, or have Cursor write something and then have Codex review it. And this really makes sure that your code is concise, comprehensive, error-free, and achieving the goals that you want it to achieve. And as you can see, Codex actually found a number of meaningful issues with the test suite that Cursor created. And so now we could ask Codex to fix it and build a more robust testing suite. And tip number 7, this is a subtle one, but very effective, is to talk to your vibe coding AI tool. Don't type. Because when you're typing, you're naturally going to be a little bit more concise, simply because typing is a little bit harder than talking. But if you use a voice-to-text tool, and I like the tool Monologue by the Every team, then you will naturally be more verbose in your instructions. So instead of typing out what I want it to do, I'll just hold down my Option key and talk to it. I'll say, I've created an implementation plan for creating categories for the site blocking lists. You can find this in plan.md. I'd like you to follow this plan and implement this new feature. Follow each of the steps one by one, being sure to update the step as you complete it. Don't do anything that is not in the plan. If you run into any issues, be sure to mark those as possible things that we need to fix at the bottom of the document. Go slowly, carefully. Please keep referring back to the document to make sure that you're staying on track, and let me know when you finish this implementation. And that is naturally going to be a much stronger prompt than if I just typed it, because you'll notice as you're speaking and as you're giving instructions, you start to think of other things that you want to make sure the agent stays aware of. And so if you talk to it instead of type, you're going to get much better results. Now, those are the 7 strategies I have found to make vibe coding error-free and build software much more effectively and much more reliably. Use the right tool. Break big projects down into small tasks. Create a very detailed plan for those tasks with the AI's help. Create a guide document for the AI using agents.md or claude.md. Use AI to review other AI's work. Create tests for your code and use your voice. Don't type. But if there are any tips that you have found really effective for getting better results out of your vibe coding tools, be sure to drop them in the comments below.